Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Let's Talk About. This is Amin.
And this Alex.
And today we're going to talk about the Poco X3 NFC. Alright, so the reason why we're talking about this phone is because it generated a lot of buzz during the launch. So this phone has just been announced in Malaysia recently. So by the time you watch this show, it's going to be probably a couple of weeks since the launch of this device. And a lot of people have been writing comments and telling us that this is a really good phone. Even Alex has mentioned that this is probably probably the best phone you can get for under 1,000 ringgit in Malaysia right now. So the question in today's show is the Poco X3 NFC really that good? And what makes it great? So what are you getting for your money? What sacrifices are you giving away for the price? And who is it for? So in today's climate, right? We see that a lot of people, a lot of customers are not interested in buying high-end devices anymore. You can see that there is a great deal of interest in mid to low range phones. You see this being prevalent because even Apple is going low end, or even Apple is going affordable with the iPhone SE. That's the cheapest iPhone you can get right now for 1,999. So 1,000 ringgit. South of that is the Poco X3 NFC. Before we go into the details of the Poco phone, I keep saying Poco phone, but that's actually not right because they've changed their name, right?
Yeah, initially there's a bit of confusion when Poco was introduced a few years back. It's Poco phone worldwide, and India is called Poco, but now they standardize it. It's called Poco.
So it's Poco everywhere.
Yeah.
So we're gonna go into the details of this phone in a little bit, but before that, I want Alex to go through the specs the history of the Poco brand. Yep. So what is it? Is it from Indonesia or what? And what's going on? And then we go into the phone.
Indonesia, Poco?
Yeah, Poco.
So Poco is like a sub-brand under Xiaomi. So it's their attempt of making like a OnePlus of sorts. So it's a brand that's supposed to give you the best specs at the lowest price. And the phone that started it all was the Poco phone F1.
Yeah.
Back then it was like a flagship phone with a Snapdragon 845. It was going for like 1,200 ringgit, which is a crazy value for money device.
Yeah, I remember when that device first came out, the Poco phone F1, everybody was like, you don't need to get anything anymore.
Buy Beli Poco.
Yeah, there was like a hashtag, buy Beli Poco. It's like, no need to waste your money to get anything else, get Poco phone. And then we went into this discussion whether, is it like really specs matter or experience matter, or is it a bit of both? And I think we're kind of like in the middle. Specs do play a role, but for me at least, I don't really look for all of the high-end things. As long as it can deliver the high-end experience, that's pretty much enough for me. And that brings us back to this phone. Okay, so after the F1,
there was like a silence for like 1 or 2 years.
2 years. I think it was 2 years. Everybody was waiting. I'm still hanging on to my F1. I'm waiting for the F2, and I want it to be like super good. I want it to have all the flagship componentry and really have a good price for it. But that didn't came.
Yep.
Immediately after the F1 came
the Poco X2, which is like a mid-range phone. And if you look at the device, it's essentially a rebatch of the Redmi K30.
So was this last year?
I think it was
the X2.
The X2, I think it's around late last year, and it's only released in India.
So when people were waiting for the allegedly F2 to come out to replace the F1, Poco kind of like made an announcement that the X2 is coming out, and everybody is like, okay, finally the replacement for the F1 is going to be called X2, and I'm like super excited. But when they came out with the phone, the specs didn't follow the same spirit of the F1. And I think there was like a lot of confusion. I think Xiaomi, which is the owner of this Poco brand, rode the hype, and they paid for it because they under-delivered. So a lot of people like really wanted a flagship killer at a flagship killer price, but got an X2 instead, which is like, it's not that bad.
but it's not what I expected. What pisses them off is that it's just a rebatch phone. It's like a lazy release. You take essentially a Redmi K30 device from China, and then you just slap a Poco badge on it. Like, hey, you should be giving us a new phone.
Yeah, but the K30 is not. I mean, it was a pretty good. It's still a good phone, right?
Yeah, but it's a mid-ranger. People were looking forward to a flagship phone. So like the X2, right? What it had was a Snapdragon 730G. It's like a mid-range phone, similar to the Mi 90, and then it had 120 Hz display, but it's an LCD display, and of course. It's not a flagship device. The point is, it's not a flagship device.
Okay, and then after that, after the X2, and after a lot of people got like really pissed off, it never got released outside of India. Then Poco announced the F2
Pro.
Okay, so what's the F2 Pro? Is the replacement for the F1?
Yes, the real flagship.
So that had like flagship specs and everything.
But the price is a bit on the high side. So instead of the 1,200 ringgit, it was released for about 2,199 ringgit.
So that got people pissed off as well. It's like, hey, you know, I'm looking for a flagship phone for below 1,000 ringgit. Because like Alex mentioned, Poco is a brand under Xiaomi. And as you know, Xiaomi was an entry-level brand when it started. So if you want cheap and good things, you look for Xiaomi. But as you also know, Xiaomi has now moved up market. They are selling phones for 3,000 ringgit, which is unheard of a couple of years ago. So they need another brand to fill in the gap, and that gap is the Poco brand. So after that, we have the X3.
Yeah, X3. So after the F2 Pro came out, they released the M2 Pro in India as well. That's another mid-range phone, and that's yet another rebatch phone. It's actually a recycled Redmi Note 9S. Yeah. Okay,
so Xiaomi's, so Poco's history is kind of like a bit wishy-washy. They started out with the F1, and that set like the expectation. Everybody expected Poco to be the cheap and good brand. And then after that, they came out with the X2, which like disappointed everybody because of the specs. And then the F2 Pro came out, which had good specs, but the price was like
quite high.
Not so great.
Yep.
And then there's the M2, which is an India only thing, and nobody wanted that as well. Then come to 2020, Poco make a huge announcement, the X3 NFC.
Yep.
So why is everybody talking about this phone?
Personally, when the phone was initially teased, I wasn't too excited about it. It's, okay, it's just another mid-range phone, you know. It's going to be another disappointment like the X2. But it actually came up with a couple of interesting surprises. Like the first of all is the processor. So it is the first phone that runs on the latest Qualcomm Snapdragon 732G. So this is like the updated version of 730G, and I would say this is probably the best non-5G chipset I can get right now from Qualcomm. In terms of the latest range, 2020 range. And on top of that, the Poco X3 also comes with a 120 Hz screen, and you also get stereo speakers, which is perfect for gaming. A good processor, a very fluid screen, and also stereo speakers. And I forgot to mention also the battery. This is massive. The X3 NFC comes with a 5,160 mAh battery, 5160 mAh.
That's bigger than the Galaxy Note 20
Ultra?
Yes.
Yeah, just 5,000 mAh. This 5160. And not just that, it supports 33-watt fast charging.
And not only that, it has a headphone jack.
Yes, a headphone jack, micro SD card expansion slot. So it's like practically almost everything you need. And it's less than 1,000 ringgit.
Okay, so it's a no-brainer. The storage is, the base model is 64 gigs.
Yep.
With what, 8 gigs of RAM?
RAM is standard across, it's 6 gigs of RAM.
Okay, 6 gigs of RAM. And then there's an upgraded version with 128 gigs of storage. Again with 6 gigs of RAM. I guess, okay, what are the other competitors when it comes to this price range below 1,000? We have Realme?
Realme also, but most they are not running on the Qualcomm chipsets.
Not the current processor.
Not the current processors. There's a new one actually coming out, the Realme 7 Pro that runs on the Snapdragon 720G, so it's an older processor. In fact, the X3, right, I would say they're killing themselves. Why I'm saying killing themselves because it's very similar to the Redmi Note 9 Pro and Redmi Note 9S, which is also from the same family. And that previously was like the best phone you can get for less than 1,000 ringgit because it has a big screen, pretty good processor, a 720G. You also have a huge battery, also about 5,000 mAh, and it's less than 1,000 ringgit. So this is like in competition of its own on siblings. But on top of that, the X3 offers so much more. You get a 120Hz display, you get stereo speakers, so it pretty killed the Redmi Note 9.
Okay, so the thing is, I'm coming in as the skeptic point of view from here, and I'm trying to like poke holes when it comes to this phone. And I've played around with it, and to be honest, I really can't find anything wrong with it, even with the price considered. So even for below 1,000 ringgit, this phone is a really good phone. I mean, I'm sure more reputable brand, not reputable, but more recognized brands. Okay lah, not recognized brand because Xiaomi and Poco are quite recognizable as well.
Yeah.
Other brands like Samsung, Apple would gladly charge you more, at least 1,500 for something similar. And none of them has a headphone jack, which is something that I think a lot of people miss. This has IP rating.
It's more like splash resistance, IP53.
Yeah, so it's not really waterproof, but I guess it's okay. And you know, it has a lot of things that even flagship phones don't have. Chiefly, one of them is an IR blaster, so you can make this device into a remote. I really can't fault it. Okay, let's talk about the camera. It has what, 4 cameras at the back?
Yeah, 4 cameras at the back. Okay, the camera bump looks a bit odd, but I think it gives it a character.
It's quite unique and distinctive.
Yep.
The bump is like quite huge lah.
Yeah, quite huge, but it's still okay. Still decent. Still
Yeah.
better
So
than Note
okay,
20.
what kind of camera do we get?
So you get a 64 megapixel main camera at the back, and you also get a 30 megapixel ultra wide angle camera, and you have 2 megapixel for macro and 2 megapixel for depth sensing.
What do you think of the camera?
The camera is pretty decent. For me, the only thing I don't like about it is the camera interface. It uses the Xiaomi's MIUI camera interface, which it's a bit frustrating sometimes. It feels a bit laggy. It's not as responsive as it should.
Okay lah, it's quite basic lah.
It's quite basic, but if you're in a hurry, right, you can get a bit frustrated at times.
So does it have, the camera has like super slow-mo and
yeah, you have
stuff?
all those stuff. And then I think there's how you call that?
There's the vlog mode.
There's also something called the Skyscaping Mode. There's also, which is quite interesting. So apparently you can take day shots of something and turn it into night. Like take a picture of like a skyline, right? And you can add like aurora lights and all that stuff.
Oh, that's like
reverse night mode.
Like Photoshop camera.
Something like
Yeah.
And you can shoot 4K videos as well. There's some steady video mode. So for less than $1,000, I can't really fault it.
Yes, and it has the power button doubles as a fingerprint scanner, which is something similar to what you get with the Galaxy Fold and the Galaxy Z Fold 2.
Some people don't like it.
Display. Some people don't like this.
Some people don't like the side fingerprint sensor because, let's say for example, if the phone's on the table, right, you need to pick it up to unlock it.
Yeah.
Some people prefer the on-screen display, but for me personally, I prefer a side-mounted.
No, I mean if you have it on the table and you want to unlock it, you just swipe it up and punch in your password.
But that's too cumbersome.
You don't have to pick it up. I mean, you can so you can put like you can scan I think up to 4 fingers. You can have 1 finger like that. So if I wanted to unlock it, I'll just do that and it's unlocked.
For me, I have no issue, but some people prefer like the on-screen buttons.
Yeah, so that's nitpicking lah.
Yeah.
I mean,
but for me, it's responsive. It's much reliable than on-screen fingerprint sensor.
Have we played around this phone enough to talk about the battery life?
Battery life, not yet. We haven't give it like a full rundown on it. Yeah, by 5,000 milliamp hour, I think you can get easily 2 days.
For a Snapdragon processor, right?
Yeah,
I think
Snapdragon. And you can get a full charge in 65 minutes with the 33-watt fast charger.
Okay, I'm trying to test the speakers on this. Let's see.
Open one of our Soy Cincang videos.
Salam sejahtera. Poco X3 baru saja dilancarkan dan ia terus dijual di Malaysia. Jadi saya nak beritahu semua perkara yang anda perlu tahu tentang Poco X3.
I don't know how you're gonna stereo this, but
Poco X3 ni adalah telefon pintar pertama yang menggunakan chip Snapdragon 732G. Ia juga datang dengan LPDDR4 sebesar 6GB dan
I think the speaker is okay. Okay, so nitpicking. Let's do this. In terms of specs, I really can't punch any holes. when it comes to the Poco X3 NFC as a package. But if you go into the details, these are the problems that I have with it. The speaker, not so loud, although it's stereo, it's okay only. The number 2 thing that I have a problem with is the display. So we talked about this when Apple came out with the
iPhone
10R.
Yep.
So it had a flagship processor, flagship camera, flagship everything, but the display to me was terrible. I am like super spoiled because I use OLED displays all the time, and I think LCD, if you put it side by side, it's noticeable. So, but then again, in this price bracket, is there a phone that can offer
OLED?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like you look at Samsung, they have like the A30 series, that's less than $1,000. It's OLED displays. Yeah, but of course, the OLEDs on those phones, right, it's not the same as what you get on the flagship phones. Normally, they have like a lower brightness. The contrast ratio isn't as high as the flagship models, but it's still pretty vibrant.
Yeah. So this one has a
6.67 inch.
6.67 inch. So it's roughly as big as a Note 20, right?
Yeah, the Note 20, the
6.7.
Note Ultra. Yeah, 6.7. It's pretty close. It's quite a big screen.
Yeah, it's a substantial phone. Speaking of the display, it's LCD, and you mentioned that it's the brightness, right? So somebody on our YouTube channel, I forgot the name, maybe later the guys can put the question here, was asking about the whether the Poco X3 NFC could be viewed, how was the performance in outdoor situation, and I did some research, and it turns out they didn't mention this in the specs or during the presentation. The brightness of this is about 450 nits, which is actually substantially less than a standard smartphone.
What defines standard?
Okay, so for example, a flagship phone like the Galaxy Note 20 Ultra pushes out, I think, over 1,500 nits. That's like almost over 3 times the brightness of this phone. Even the Apple Watch, so I'm wearing a Series 5 now, the Series 5 display pushes out 1,000 nits.
Okay, hold on.
A standard smartphone, roughly to be eligible, is about around 750 to 800 nits in terms of brightness. So I have an issue there.
Okay, you're just talking about numbers, but what does it actually mean? Because
it means you cannot view it under bright sunlight. If let's say, okay, you go cycling or you go to the beach, you cannot read it. Even if you put it on the dashboard, right, to open ways, right? If it's like this, if you have like a really big windscreen, the display gets like dimmed out.
Not really. Okay, let's talk one by one. So the Note 20, it says it can go up to 1,005. The thing is, you can't really push it 1,005. Yeah, the thing is, you can't let it run at 1,500 nits because that's the peak brightness only for certain situations to enable HDR.
Yeah, it's there if I need it. Okay, so let's try this. This is the
highest. That's 450. Yep.
Of
course, obviously.
Under studio lights.
Yeah, obviously it won't be as bright as OLED, but you can't get 1,005 on a normal day. Because 1,005 is the peak brightness. Only go
you
up.
need 1,005 on a sunny day.
But the thing is, you're talking the different numbers, dude. Because okay, there's peak brightness and maximum brightness. You say 1,005. The phone can't run 1,005 nits all the time. You're gonna burn the screen, man. In most normal scenarios, right, you'll be pushing probably about 900 or 1,000 nits, the maximum brightness. The 1,005 nits is just to accommodate in situations whereby you need to watch HDR content.
Okay.
And okay, you know what? Like going back to like the mid-range one, let's go back to phones that cost less than 1,000 ringgit.
Right.
Like the Galaxy A series, right? They use an OLED screen. And do you know what's the maximum brightness?
No.
The A51, right, tops at 565 nits.
But it's OLED. You don't need so bright.
What? Okay, we're talking about brightness here. Okay, you know the iPhone XS? The iPhone XS Max, right, maxes out at 660 nits.
Holy shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
660. Well, 660 is above 450. 450 is okay. That one, the cheap Galaxy, what was it again?
A51 is OLED. It's 565.
565 is still above 450.
Yeah, because it's OLED.
Okay, you're talking about peak, right? So at 450, you minus another 20%, you get probably 300 nits.
No, there's no peak on this one because this maximum brightness. This OLED is the one that can pick up, go higher.
Whatever lah, but it's still below.
Yeah, it's still below. I agree it's below, but it's not like that terrible. You can't compare this with 1,500 nits.
Alright,
Wait,
so
does this have sunlight?
Sunlight display.
okay, so
Then the brightness is irrelevant.
so Rory's behind the camera. A sunlight display is, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, is when the display reflects back the sunlight to make it brighter. Is it?
No. That's not how it works.
Dude, there is a legit technology. Garmin has that
Yeah, that's
in
a
their LCD display.
Trans-reflective.
Yeah.
that's different. You talk about a color LCD display here.
Okay, what is sunlight?
Sun display is
Hello,
basic.
the Garmin is color also.
Yeah, but it's not meant for like a full screen display like this. Okay, sunlight display is essentially a technology to make it more readable under harsh sunlight. So how that's done is they play around with contrast. So instead of having like a wide dynamic range, right, of colors, they actually make it more readable under sunlight. Nokia has done the same thing as well, and Xiaomi has done it with the Mi 4i. I'm not sure whether this has it. Can you try to look for it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I can't say it in the spec sheet.
All right, so the other,
Yeah.
okay, so I'm still going to stand by my thing. I think the brightness is too low. 450 nits is whatever. My Apple Watch, again, 1000 nits peak. Even if you take off 20% of that peakness, you still get 800 nits, which is almost double of this whatever phone, Poco X3.
Yeah. Okay, there's sunlight mode here. So there's a
What
mode.
does that mean?
It makes it more readable under
It
sunlight.
doesn't go above 450, right?
You don't need. Yeah, it doesn't go for 450. I agree with that, but it makes it more readable.
How does it do that?
Contrast, it adjusts the contrast.
Meh.
You've seen it on the Mi 4i. It works. It works on the Nokia as well. They've done it before.
So if you
Actually, it works better than some Samsung flagships.
yeah, it works better than some Samsung flagships. Exactly. We need, but of course, we need. The only way to find out is we had to go through a full review. So wait for that. Rory, you on it, right?
Here's the thing, right? So the speaker not so loud.
But it's stereo though.
Dude, you guys tell me. Not so loud, but two speakers. Does it make it better? I don't know.
You can be loud, but it's crap. But this is quite balanced actually. One thing I like about this is left and right channels are quite balanced. Because there's a lot of stereo speakers, stereo smartphones, right? You can feel it's actually louder on the right, but this is pretty balanced.
Okay, both of us agree that for less than 1,000 ringgit, do not look at anything else. Get the Poco X3
Yep.
NFC. I don't know why they have the NFC name there.
Yeah, that's something really weird. Like, imagine if there's a headphone jack, right? Oh, Poco X3 3.5 mm. Do you need to shout it out?
Yeah, so I don't know why they make the NFC a huge distinction. Speaking of NFC, the other problem I have with this is it doesn't have an ecosystem. So for a user, I don't know whether the low-end people in the I don't know lah. I don't want to see people in the low end or whatever. It's like, what is a typical user? I don't know. But for me, I need the ecosystem. My iPhone, it has the ecosystem. Works with my computer, works with my watch. My Samsung, it has the ecosystem because I have Samsung Pay. With the Poco, yes, you get specs, and this is an argument that I mentioned before. Specs do not matter to me if it doesn't give me a good experience. And with this, it's compromised because the MIUI is terrible. I don't like it.
It's better than the previous
Terrible.
version, but
The
okay.
the display, I have an issue with. The vibration, the haptic feedback feels cheap.
What?
Yeah.
That is Z-axis feedback for gaming, okay?
Yeah, it's meant for game.
Why you discriminate? What about me? I don't play games. Why not you give me a better haptic without games?
Pay more lah. Buy a phone that's more than 1,000 ringgit.
I don't know.
You must think about who is this targeted for? It's for people who wants,
No, it's for people who don't want to spend more than 1,000 ringgit on a phone. Period. Doesn't matter whether you're a gamer or a non-gamer or a kid or an old person. You have 1,000 ringgit. You want the best. You want the best phone you can get.
Yep.
This is the best phone you can get.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
And people-
it is.
Okay, just to recap the price. I think we haven't mentioned the price yet.
Huh.
Yeah, so just to recap, the 64 gigs version is going for 899 ringgit, and the 128 gigs version is going for 1,099 ringgit. So that's pretty good value. And in fact, right, if you look at the
Okay,
pricing,
what are the other phones that you can get within this range?
the Redmi Note 9S
Which is an older processor.
is older processor, and then Right now, you can get discounts and all that. And then another thing is that that phone has a slightly smaller battery. You have what's that already? You don't have stereo speakers.
Okay, then the Samsung A30.
The A30, okay, that one is using an Exynos processor, so it's quite weak in terms of that department. So you want the performance, you want a high refresh rate screen, you want stereo speakers. There's no other phone better than this. Oh, Realme 6. Okay, Realme 6, there's a high refresh rate, it's 90 Hz, but this is 120
I don't
Hz.
understand the fuss of this high refresh rate.
You play games and you can feel the difference,
Look,
man.
I'm a guy that don't play games. I watch
Then that's
Netflix.
not for
I
you.
read emails.
Yep.
I don't need. It takes. What? Turn around and say something. What did you say, Najib?
Buy another phone.
Yeah.
No, again, I in one of the videos, I think it was the Nord, somebody was triggered when I commented that I never used 120 Hz display. Then I switched. I switched to the Galaxy S20 Ultra. It has a 120 Hz display, and I turned it on permanently. And yeah, I was excited for like a couple of days, and then after that, it's like, this is meh. The battery is terrible. Then Rory tells me, oh, I chose the wrong phone to try 120 Hz display because Samsung, this is on Exynos, right?
Yeah.
The battery life is not so great.
And the technology is not that great either. When you switch to 120, it's running 120 all the time. It doesn't
Adaptive.
Yeah, it's not adaptive. Not like the Note 20 Ultra.
Okay, now you tell me you want adaptive 120 lah, what lah. You want 120 or you don't want 120?
When you need it. Like going back to this Poco X3 NFC, it has something called dynamic switch. It's actually similar as the Note 20 Ultra, so it changes the refresh rate based on your application. So you play like games, right? They need high refresh rate. It can boost to 90 or 120 Hz. If you're watching a video, there's no 120 FPS videos out there, so it runs at 60 Hz. That saves power. And if you're viewing a static image, it drops down to 50 Hz, saving even more power.
I don't play games.
Then great. Then you save more battery compared to the S20 Ultra.
I only watch. So I need to scale it back down to 100 to 60, is it?
For which one?
For the S20.
Yeah, if you don't need it, you just change it back to 60.
I guess. So
you have
I
the
don't
option.
know. I mean, not a big deal for me. But yeah, I really can't argue much. Maybe get a Samsung because then I can use my Samsung Pay, but...
And you're using a Exynos processor, 9611.
Yeah, that's too much of a sacrifice for me to just be able to take my phone and tap on things. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. What do you guys think? Is there anything else you want to add?
Hashtag Bite Belly Poco.
The Nord. Okay, so before this, there was a huge fuss about the OnePlus Nord.
Yep.
That was the thing. I think we did a show about that. You want to watch the OnePlus Nord? Click on somewhere around here. There's a show on LTA about the OnePlus Nord, whether it's good or not. It's pretty okay.
Yeah, but a lot of people complain about the price though, because for that price you get so much better options, including this bigger brother, the Poco F2 Pro. At the time of this recording, right, you can get a Poco F2 Pro with a Snapdragon 865 processor with an AMOLED screen for 1499. That's superb value for money.
Baik beli Poco.
Yeah.
But again, I am not an advocate of specs. I don't like going into discussions where, oh, my processor is the latest and yours is the not so latest, because I really am an ardent believer of optimization. You might have like the best processor and the best camera and the biggest battery, but if it's not optimized, it's still a terrible experience.
Like the S20 Ultra.
Yes, actually, the camera is terrible. It has the best hardware, but the autofocus has a problem. The display, it has the best display, but it's not optimized because it doesn't have the adaptive thing, which is weird because it's a software thing.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they can push the update somehow.
And the Exynos processor is probably the latest and the greatest Samsung can push out, but it's not optimized, and that's a good thing. Another example of optimization spectrum towards this end. So if the Galaxy S20 Ultra is this end, the iPhone 11 Pro Max, which is what I'm using also, is a good example of optimization. Yep. It has the latest processor, but it's not the thinnest, like in terms of the nanometer, whatever. The battery is not like really great. It's not big.
Yeah.
But it's optimized. Camera's good, battery life's good, running everything is good, and I don't blame Samsung and I don't credit Poco. The thing is that's a Android ecosystem price. You pay less and that's the trade-off. The ecosystem is not really that optimized. The question where you started the show with was what's so great about the Poco phone? Actually, everything.
Yep. You can't find
Especially
anything
the price.
better. Yeah, the price.
SIM card, dual SIM card.
Dual SIM card, but the micro SD card is a hybrid slot, so you have to share.
Hybrid means if you put a SD card, you
only
can't
put one.
put a SIM card.
You only can put one SIM. Yeah.
And it doesn't have 5G. If that's a big deal for you guys.
Yep.
Is 5G a big deal for you?
Not really, because by the way, Malaysia, I think it's going to be released sometime in 2022, realistically.
Okay,
Yeah.
Najib. For 1,000 ringgit, would you get a Poco or X3 or what?
Baik beli Poco.
Exactly.
Infrared right?
Infrared, yes.
So, because Najib go to Mama a lot, right? So he likes to change the...
Channels. Oh, cover blown.
Alright, okay. That's pretty much it. I hope you enjoyed the show. Today we talked about the Poco X3 NFC and whether it's good, whether it's a good buy or not. Hands down, it is. Can't find a fault for the price. And that's pretty much it. Thank you very much for watching the show. By the way, if you're new to Let's Talk About, we are also available on podcasts, so you can catch us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. We're there. Just search for Search and Child Let's Talk About, and we're there. If you are listening to us on podcasts, give us a 5-star rating if you like the show, because that helps us a lot in getting the show to a lot more people out there. If you're watching us on YouTube, give us a thumbs up if you like the show. Comment, suggest, talk, give us your thoughts on the Poco X3 NFC. Am I right or is Alex right? I'm always right, so thank you guys. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you like the show. Alright, okay, thank you very much. This is Amin.
And this is Alex.
Thanks for watching, guys. Catch you guys in another episode of Let's Talk About. See ya. Bye.
Bye.